Welcome to the March 5th Municipal Council meeting, which I now will call to order. Having now returned from my medical leave of absence, I want to extend my thanks and appreciation to all members of Council for their support while I was away. I also thank our senior management team and members of our community for the support and messages of well wishes. I'm pleased to be back. Before moving on to the agenda, on behalf of Council, I extend condolences on the passing of the Right Honourable Brian Mulrooney, who passed away on February 29th at the age of 84. As the 18th Prime Minister of Canada, Mr. Mulrooney will be remembered for the historical legacy he leaves behind. He was also a son, a husband, a father, a grandfather, and friend to many people. Our thoughts and sympathies are with his family and all who knew him. We will now observe a moment of silence. Thank you. We will now move on to item B. Are there any declarations of interest at this time? Seeing none, I will proceed to our land acknowledgement. The town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaties First Nation and other Indigenous peoples, and on behalf of Council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nations as East Gwillimbury's closest nation community and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. We are at item D for deputations, and there are no deputations today. Item E, presentations. There are no presentations today. Item F is committee recommendations. To adopt the Committee of the Whole recommendations from the meeting held on February the 21st, 2024. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor LaHaye, Councillor Crothers. Be it resolved that Council adopt the Committee of the Whole Council recommendations from a meeting held on February 21st, 2024. All those in favor? And that's a carry. I'm now down to adoption of minutes. The minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting from the meeting held on February 21st, 2024. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Foster, Councillor Roy DeClemente. Be it resolved that Council adopt the Committee of the Whole Council minutes from the meeting held on February 21st, 2024. All in favor? And that's carried. Item 2, to adopt the Council minutes from the special meeting held on February 13th, 2024, and the meeting held on February 21st, 2024. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Crone, Councillor LaHaye. All those in favor? And that's carried. We'll now move on to item H, and this is a statutory public meeting. Procedural comments. This afternoon we have 2 statutory meetings on the agenda. The procedural comments I will now read will apply to both meetings, item H and I, on the agenda. Members of the public, this portion of the Council meeting is a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act. The purpose of this meeting is to inform the public and obtain public input on 2 planning applications received by the town prior to a full technical analysis being conducted by our staff. No decision to approve or refuse The application will be made here tonight. There will be presentations from both town planning staff and the applicants on those development applications. Following these presentations, members of the public will be invited to offer their comments or concerns respecting the proposals. Submissions can also be made in writing. It is very important that the town receive the names and addresses of individuals having an interest in these planning applications. If you plan to speak to council at this meeting, or if you wish to be notified of any future council meetings concerning these applications when they be being considered, you must provide your contact information to the clerk. Under the Planning Act, the application or resident have a right to appeal any decision of council on planning applications to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but you must verbally express any comments or concerns here tonight, or submit any comments or concerns in writing to the town before the bylaw is passed. The tribunal may dismiss all or part of an appeal made in respect of an application. The public meeting is being audio and video recorded for storing and broadcasting on the internet. Your name, address, comments, and any other personal information is being collected and maintained for the purpose of sending correspondence relating to matters before council and creating a record that is available to the public in hard copy format and on the internet in an electronic format pursuant to Section 27 of the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Questions about the collection of personal information should be directed to the town clerk. I will now ask the General Manager of Development Services to begin with the presentations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, our first public meeting concerns an application for a temporary use zoning bylaw amendment. And we have Pardis Sanjanchi, who's a member of the planning staff and also serves as Secretary Treasurer to the Committee of Adjustment, to present the planning context for this application.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of the council, town staff, and all members of the public in attendance. I'm Pardis Sanjanchi, planner with the town of East Gwillimbury, and I'm here to provide a brief presentation on the temporary use zoning bylaw amendment for 30 Orchard Court. Next slide, please. The subject property is located south of Queensville Side Road and east of Center Street. The property can be accessed from Orchard Court and has an area of approximately 1.35 hectares or 3.3 acres. The property currently contains one single detached dwelling, an outdoor pool, and the surrounding land uses are primarily residential and agricultural lands. The proposed application would rezone the land to facilitate the construction of a garden suite, which will be in effect for 20 years from the day of passing the bylaw. Next slide, please. In this slide, I'd like to first make note that under sections 39 and 39.1 of the Planning Act, municipalities may permit garden suites for a maximum of 20 years with the ability to request extension by 3-year increments. Under this provision, council has the authority to enact a temporary use bylaw to permit a temporary use on the subject lands, including garden suites. The subject property is designated state residential area in the town's current official plan. Lands designated state residential area permit one single detached dwelling on private services. In accordance with the Planning Act, the town's official plan also permits garden suite on the temporary basis not to exceed the 20 years as prescribed by the Ontario Planning Act through a site-specific temporary use bylaw. In areas not serviced by municipal water and sewage disposal, garden suites may be permitted on lots with a minimum area of 0.8 hectares as per sections 4.15.4 of the town's official plan. I'd like to make note that the subject property meets the size requirement. Next slide, please. The current zoning of the subject property is state residential within the town of East Gwillimbury zoning bylaw. The state residential zone permits one single detached dwelling and accessory buildings and structures. Garden suite is permitted in all zones, subject to provisions outlined in sections 4.29.4 of the town zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. This slide outlines the proposed zoning for the subject land. The zoning on the property is proposed to change from state residential to state residential with a temporary permission for the garden suite for a period of not more than 20 years. I would like to also make note that based on the discussion I had with the applicant last week, it was confirmed by the applicant that the following site-specific zone provision is also proposed, which is regarding to the height requirement. Maximum height of 4.9 meters is proposed for the garden suite, whereas as per section 4.29.4 of the zoning bylaw, the maximum required height is 4.6 for the garden suite. Next slide, please. This is the proposed site plan provided by the applicant, indicating the location of the existing dwelling, the pool, and the proposed garden suite and the septic. Next slide, please. The submitted application is currently under review by internal departments and external agencies. Matters to be evaluated and addressed in a future recommendation report to council include consistency and conformity with provincial, regional, and local planning policy, review for any zoning provision deficiencies, review of the septic system to ensure OBC conformity. Next slide, please. Planning staff have not received any comments from the public at the time of preparing the report and presentation. Next slide, please. Staff will continue to undertake a technical review of the subject application, including discussions from today's public planning meeting, and a comprehensive report with recommendation on a temporary zoning bylaw amendment will be presented to a future council meeting. Next slide, please. Thank you for today's presentation.
We do not have any presentation from the applicant or agents at this time, so we will move forward to item 4, public comments. I will now ask the municipal clerk to advise if we have any registered speakers with respect to this application.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we have not received any inquiries for individuals to register for this particular application. However, there are individuals in the public. If you wish, you could ask if anyone in the audience would like to provide their name and contact information and proceed to the lectern to speak on this application.
Are there members in the audience that would like to speak? I'm not seeing any. Members of council, are there members that would like to speak at this point? Councillor Crone, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to support this. It is entirely regrettable, though, that it had to come this way. Correct me if I'm wrong, staff, but if our official plan had been approved by the region, this wouldn't be necessary. Am I wrong? I'm seeing some nods here. So, this is just crazy. To use Councillor John's words, it's bonkers. We've been 2 years, we're closing in on 2 years since our official plan was adopted by this council, June 21st, 2022, which would have allowed this. There would be no need for an official meeting here, a public meeting. And the added cost to the applicant is probably in excess of $10,000. That's wrong. And Madam Mayor, I am so glad that you're back. Please take the message back to Regional Council. We need this passed because this should be the last person that comes to us before this council and has to go through a public meeting. It's just wrong. We're trying to, we have a provincial mandate to build more homes. This garden suites meet a need out there of providing attainable housing to people that can't afford it. This is a young couple that's trying to build this to get ahead. we need to do more. So we really need to express in the strongest terms possible to the regional council, pass our official plan so we don't have any more of these meetings and our citizens are bogged down with needless bureaucracy. Thank you, I'm done.
Other comments? I'm not seeing any at this time. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Crone, Councillor Roy DeClemente, but you'll have a question as well.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, given that our, I guess it's still a draft official plan would have permitted this and that we've adopted that official plan, are we in a position to save ourselves the follow-up and simply approve it now? Through you, Madam Mayor, to staff? Frankly, Councillor Crone, I'd like to send the bill for the public meeting to the region.
Absolutely.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll ask our manager of planning to speak. She's been most closely involved in working with the region through the modifications that resulted from the provincial legislative changes.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have been working with the region through the comments that were provided on the official plan. There has been some concern with respect to garden suites. Specifically, the regional official plan doesn't permit accessory dwelling units in detached structures. That's kind of one of the sticking points that we're working on right now and is sort of the final item. So it's hard to say at this point whether or not the region would approve that in our official plan because it is seen as a bit of a conformity issue right now. Which is why this individual is going through the provisions in the Planning Act to allow it on a temporary basis.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Let's just let the process work its way through, but it seems to me that the province was telling us they wanted to see accessory dwelling units. So it may be that the region's OP isn't in conformity with the provincial legislation. I pose that as a rhetorical question, but thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other comments, questions from members of council? I'm not seeing any at this time. We have a I have a resolution in front of all of us, correct? And I need a, perfect. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? That's carried. At this time, we have a secondary public meeting, statutory meeting, zoning bylaw amendment application, 6 Development, Inc., 19820. Margot, perhaps you could move this one along. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this is the second public meeting today considering a zoning bylaw amendment on behalf of 6 Development Incorporated. And Janani Negulin is the planner on the file who will provide the planning context for this application.
Welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors, staff, and members of the public for attending this public meeting for the development at 19820 Holland Landing Road. My name is Janani Nagulin, a planner too with the town. I will be providing an overview of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application. Next slide, please. So the proposal itself is a zoning bylaw amendment application. The proposed development is comprised of 2 3-story buildings and 5 single-story buildings. And the zoning bylaw would be proposing additional permitted uses and site-specific zone provisions. Next slide, please. The subject property is municipally known as 19820 Holland Landing Road. It is bounded by Highway 11, Bathurst Street, and Holland Landing Road. The lands are currently vacant and are approximately 1.12 hectares or 2.77 acres in area. The application also includes lands that were originally proposed for the Oriole Road unopened road allowance, which the owner was successful in acquiring. Next slide, please. The official plan designation for the property is prestige employment. The prestige employment designation is to provide locations within the town for prestige employment uses that require good access and high visibility along major transit routes. The property is more specifically located within the Holland Landing prestige employment area. The areas designated as such are to be developed to include commercial uses that are that serve specialized needs for residents, employees, tourists, and the traveling public. Next slide, please. The current zoning of the property is employment prestige within our zoning bylaw 2018-043. The zone permits a variety of employment-related uses and ancillary uses. The zone, however, restricts ancillary uses within industrial malls and requires that the net floor area of the ancillary uses do not exceed 300 square meters. There are 2 holds currently on the property, H1, and that would be lifted, which requires, the H1 holding provision requires confirmation from the region and the town that that servicing allocation is available before it's lifted. And lifting the H3 hold provision requires an approved natural heritage evaluation. Next slide, please. The proposed zoning is a site-specific prestige employment zone. So this would permit the 2 3-story buildings and the 5 single-story buildings. The zoning bylaw would permit medical office use as well as additional ancillary uses, which would include motor vehicle, gas bar, restaurant with drive-through service, and a retail store. Additional site-specific provisions are also proposed. These include setbacks for the property to be 1.2 meters, that the primary building on the property be no less than 4,800 square meters of floor area, that the parking on the property, there'd be 256 parking spaces. The front lot line be off of Bathurst Street. The ancillary uses be permitted in single-story buildings, and that the size of those buildings do not exceed 600 square meters, and that ancillary uses be permitted within 2-story buildings, but shall not exceed the total ground floor area of that such building. Next slide, please. A review of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is currently being conducted by internal departments and external agencies. Planning staff identified the following matters to be addressed and resolved before the final report is prepared for council's consideration. So consistency and conformity with the provincial, regional, and local planning policies, the appropriateness and compatibility of proposed development with its surroundings, terms of reference for parking justification is required, timing and adequacy of municipal servicing, infrastructure, and community facilities to support the proposed uses. Next slide, please. No public comments were provided at the time of the submission of this presentation. Next slide, please. In conclusion, staff will undertake a technical review of the subject application, including discussions from today's public meeting. Staff will continue to comprehensively review the submitted zoning bylaw amendment application. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant or the applicant's agent.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of council, staff, and members of the public. And first of all, Madam Mayor, let me say welcome back. It's good to have you back in the chambers.
Thank you.
Dan Stone, I am the planner on this project and representing the application. I'm here with my clients and certain team members. We do have a presentation I think Tara has brought up on the screen. I'm going to walk through the first 2 slides, but Janani has done a more than adequate job on setting the planning context around the application, and I'm going to kick things over to Mr. Frank Tahari from 6 Developments to walk you through the proposal. Next slide, please, Tara. So again, this shows a little bit of a larger context of the subject property. As Janani pointed out, we're in the prestige industrial area of the Holland Landing community, fully serviced area. And as you can see, it's at a very high-profile gateway location within the municipality. Next slide, Janani. And this is a bit of a blow-up of the air photo, the same one Janani was using, but again, it shows you the location of the property together with the Oriole Road road allowance and the surrounding land uses, and again, the context of the transportation system in the area. So with that, I think the next slide, Janani, will allow me to, you can probably skip over that, because, sorry, Tara, Janani covered this, and I'll kick things over to Frank. Frank Tahari is both an architect and an engineer, and one of the owners of 6 developments, and Frank is very passionate about this project, and he's gonna walk you through it. I will say, Madam Mayor, members of council and the public that are here, we've brought our team here, and we're here to listen. This is the public meeting. We are actively pursuing the detailed site plan submission, which will advance this application to the next steps. But with that, I will kick things over to Frank, and we're happy to hear your comments and respond to any concerns or questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Frank.
Hello, good afternoon, Madam Mayor and the council members as well as the staff. As Dan mentioned, I'm part owner in the project as well as the architect leading the design of this development. I'd like to make an adjustment to description of this development as it includes a portion of a regional land which was sold to our team as well in order to create better visibility and accessibility to this plaza, and that would be on the west side of the plaza towards Highway 11, which is the extension of the Young Street. To describe this development, I would like to basically focus on the primary building, which is the primary focus of this development. It's about 60,000 square feet of above-grade prestige uses. Our intent is to include a bunch of fitness-related services, as well as medical-related services. The fitness-related services are going to be on the northeast side of this primary building. The medical services are going to be on the north and west side of this development. We're actively working with the town staff, with our sales reps, and with our market strategists to find out the best type of services and uses that can go into this building. We've gone through, I would say, tens of iterations of design to fine-tune this main building and the rest of the smaller ancillary uses to this intersection. We are anticipating to have some of the major national names on this property, which might include McDonald's as the primary fast food chain there, and potentially Shell as a gas station bar. 3 of those single-story buildings are related to the gas station facility, which is going to include a car wash. And we are foreseeing another mixed-use service-related building on the southeast corner of the property, which is the yellow building. At the moment, we are also discussing with the south neighbor the potential of them taking over that portion of the property as it's providing access to their property. As part of the sales LOI that was discussed with the town, providing access to the south property, which is calling propane, was a primary focus. We've had multiple meetings with them. We've gone through multiple, basically, design iterations in terms of creating that access. We've had our transportation consultants fine-tune those accesses based on regional and municipal requirements. And at the moment, the proposed access is both more or less complying with the regional requirements as well as with the neighbor requirements. As you know, they do have a lot of traffic going in and out from that basically property, and it's very important how it functions for them. So we've tried to capture that in this design. If we go to the next slide, the design and the intent of this development is quite important for our team. We want to make sure that by introducing this development, we are kind of reviving that prestige employment area. We are creating that spark that's needed for the area. There has been a lot of residential development in the area, but a lot of services are lacking. As a matter of fact, there's a Facebook group that this project came up, and we were reviewing the comments, and a lot of the people were interested that there's jobs in the area, there's new services in the area, and we realized that they had some concerns over how we're going to figure out the transportation aspect of it, which we're going to get into it on later slides. However, I would like to reiterate, this is not just going to be another plaza. We want to make sure it's a functioning building form for the community, not something that's just being built solely for financial reasons. I would like to go to the next slide. Right now, our team is working with our consultants to make sure we are moving into construction as soon as, and hopefully, if we get approved. So we are moving forward with most of the studies that are required for the site plan application. We've tried to put a team together that has a good sense of the community and neighborhood here and are highly technical. Part of that team is here. Evan from SCS is from our civil engineering team, who are also handling the extension of the sewage system. John from Nextrans is also here, and I'm pretty sure Dan Stone, everybody knows him. He has a very good idea about this whole neighborhood and the town, and Dale, who has a very great understanding of York region and all the developments that have happened in this area. With that, I'd like to go to the next slide. One of the challenges of this project was how are we going to service this project? We started this project back in 2017, and I believe we've been back and forth with the town from around 2020, 2021, to figure out how to deal with servicing of this plaza. We basically, based on the course of events, we've concluded that we would like to focus on a long-term solution that would help us as well as help the town unlock the rest of the prestige employment lands to the south of this property. As a result of that, we've requested 75 SD units from the new allocation that's coming to the town. And as part of this proposal, we will be extending the sewage line as well as the water line to that intersection. I would like to go to the next slide. As you all know, this property right now is governed by a holding provision, which wants to make sure we are not causing or damaging the environment and the natural heritage features. We started this project knowing that, and we've been studying the site since 2017. There has been 2 iterations of an EIS to make sure we are mitigating and we are not causing any impacts to the natural heritage in the area. What I can basically focus on here is that the fact that this property is surrounded by 3 major regional roads has more or less diminished any significance in the natural heritage features on the site, and most of them are younger vegetations that are not there, that haven't been there for a very long time. We can go to the next slide. With regards to transportation, have had multiple meetings, both in the course of selling Oriole Drive and after that, with the town, with the staff, with the region, with our consultants, and we've tried to basically take our time, understand the site, understand the context, understand what's important to the people in the area, what's important for function of this plaza, and how we can reduce those impacts. And as a result of that, and based on the conversations that we've had so far, we've reduced our basically entrance and exits on Highway 11 and Holland Landing to right in and right out on the two main access points. We will be introducing traffic calming measures within the corridor that goes between right in and right out. And as well, we've kept a full access for calling propane, which is existing as of now, and it's what they need, basically. Still, we have our transportation consultants here in case there are further questions or concerns about that can talk about that. Knowing that, we can move to the next slide. As I mentioned previously, the design of this plaza, the function, the form is quite valuable for our team, and we want it to be a valuable feature for the community. As a result, we did enroll in Saving by Design by Enbridge, and we did have our meeting in June of 2023. We are trying to have a lot of green features on this site. We want this to be a low-impact development, and we are trying to incorporate features that potentially will reduce the energy demand or need of this whole facility, and make it a green development. We are working on those. We do have energy consultants as it stands right now, and we just want to make sure this is something that is not, again, damaging the environment, but helping it. In terms of access, we did go through a bunch of meetings with the region and the town to make sure we are as close as possible to Highway 11. And potentially in the future, once Highway 11 is more urbanized, the whole plaza is going to be sitting close to the main street rather than sitting deep inside, pushing people to drive to it. As part of this development, we will be urbanizing the main intersection from the south of our property all the way to Bathurst. That's basically the extent of what we can do considering the existing drainage patterns on Holland Landing. The next slide. This development will create about $420,000 revenue per year in taxes, and it will generate about $4.2 million in development charges. These numbers are coming from our economic consultants, Parcel Economics, which have reviewed the size of this, compared it with the development fees and the taxes, and the numbers are coming there. If you go to the next slide. As part of this development is service related, we will be generating 230 jobs as defined in the official plan. However, there will be more jobs created that don't fit the description of the official plan, but they're part-time jobs or basically service-related jobs that don't quantify under the official plan. We are planning to propose a signage on the building which will be allocated to the town so that the town can advertise at that intersection for the events happening in the town. Also welcome visitors that are entering East Gwillimbury, because this would be the node of entering from Bradford. Subject to being approved by Ministry of Transportation, obviously. What we envision for this is that by allowing us to proceed with this development, we are going to help the rest of those service-related developments that have not happened in the past years, and basically help the community stay within the town rather than commute to receive services or provide services. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation, and I'm here, the rest of the team is here for any questions from the council or the public.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Thank you.
Are there questions of the? We are now at the public comments section, and if speakers would like to give names and addresses when they come to the microphone. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we currently don't have registered speakers, but I believe there are individuals that were indicating that they wanted to come to the podium. Should you wish to come in, absolutely, by all means. I'll ask Amanda to follow up with the form itself.
Welcome. Good to have you with us today.
My name is David Carvalho, and this is my first time before this honorable chamber. Therefore, please excuse me if I'm not following the right protocol. I live in Holland Landing, and to be honest with you, your idea is fantastic. Fantastic. I don't see anybody in Holland Landing going against that. I could be wrong. However, my concern, and I think it's the concern of everybody, should be the concern of everybody in this chamber, is the impact on traffic. I mean, let's be honest, this intersection is probably the worst intersection in Holland Landing, definitely in Holland Landing, but probably in East Gwillimbury. I mean, at the best of time, if you look at during rush hour, anywhere from 2:30 to about 6:30, 7 o'clock, nothing's moving. And if it is, at a snail pace. And personally, my opinion is probably not worth much. A better job could have been done when that intersection was addressed. However, I totally support this if there's some way that we can get around this issue of traffic. I mean, I don't have data, but however, I can see all the time we have serious accidents at that intersection. If we don't do something about it, the only thing we're going to do is bring that whole intersection to a standstill. Not to mention the people that are getting off work in that factories in that area, I can see it now. They're totally backed up all the time. And as much as I would love to have this entire, number one, I don't understand why that specific location was picked, because there's so many other areas where it would have been way more beneficial without having to deal with the traffic. But my concern, and I think the concerns of everybody should be, what are we going to do about the traffic in this location? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to come to the microphone?
Mike Stevenson. I just had a question about
Before we get started, just name and address, please.
Yeah, Mike Stevenson, 33 Algonquin Forest Drive, East Gwillimbury. I just had a question, council and applicant, about the H1 provision. They said that they're expecting sewer and water provisions from the municipality. My understanding was there was no additional servicing available, and I just wondered, like, has there been an update on that, and what would the timeline be for the applicant to expect the required servicing needed for this development?
We'll get an answer for you. Go ahead, please.
Madam Mayor, if I could suggest perhaps my colleague, Mr. Molinari, could speak to the infrastructure component, and then I can speak to the allocation component, if that's helpful.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So in terms of the servicing component, it's a matter of installing pipe. It's an engineering exercise and a construction exercise. The real delay on this is the allocation that would be available for, in order to put that servicing into operation.
Thank you.
And through you, Madam Mayor, it's my understanding from the applicants that they would like to make a case for receiving allocation from the municipal reserve once we have a complete understanding of what the composition of that reserve is, which, as we heard earlier this morning during Committee of the Whole, we will be sort of confirming in the near term. So they've followed very closely the discussions around the updates to the allocation policy, and we'll make their application once we have a clear understanding of the composition of that reserve.
Thank you. Members of council, questions, comments? Councillor Foster, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wonder, Andrew, can we go back to the first slide that Frank started on? That shows the kind of the way they're going to lay out the property.
Just bear with us for a
It was
moment.
about third slide in, I think. Another one? That one. Back one? So you mentioned that the property on the east end of that, what I call the east end, that intersection's so messed up you don't know if you're going north, south, east, or west there. The yellow building, you indicated there's a possibility that you might move further with Carling Propane, and that building may not end up on the plan, am I correct?
Yes, so basically, the discussions with Carling Propane owner has been around essentially swapping that property with the property to the north.
Okay.
Because they have a right of first refusal on the property on the north. There has been a contamination on property to the north apparently a long time ago, and they're trying to rectify that. That's our understanding. And then once that's done and they own that property, we might be proceeding with essentially swapping them so that our plaza and theirs have their own accesses.
Okay, so you mentioned, I believe also that that would be another entrance into the property.
To
But
our
is-
property or to their property?
I think you said there was a second one on the Holland Landing Road for you that was a right in, right out?
Yes,
So will it be in that area?
So no, so we have an access on the south portion on the west, which is right in, right out.
Off of
on
Highway 11?
Highway 11.
Yep.
On Holland Landing, we are introducing an island, and it's going to be right in and right out on the first entry point.
Right.
The secondary entry point is where you have the existing Carling Propane full access, which is going to remain as is, essentially.
Okay, I'm just thinking about the points that the members of the public brought up with the traffic are valid for sure, and we've talked about that. That intersection, you're going to have to make sure you've got a little bit of room there. I'm thinking about someone like myself coming from Holland Landing itself. You're going to want to take the first opportunity to get in there, so that one certainly needs to be wide open. It's going to be a tough intersection because everything's kind of not
100%.
straight there. That makes it a little bit more difficult.
Yep, I think John can further elaborate on that.
There, John Nan from NextTrans, the traffic consultant, transportation consultant for the applicant. We've had a terms of reference correspondence with town staff, town transportation staff, and region transportation staff as well. First off, on the access design of the property, which has led us to come to the design of the right in, right out on Highway 11 as well as on Holland Landing Drive, along that main thoroughfare driveway there, as well as the full move access further along Holland Landing Road adjacent to Carling Propane property. Given access spacing design guidelines, as well as to try to mitigate any impacts to the existing traffic as well as future traffic volumes. We've also, we have a transportation impact study that it's ongoing, and the findings of that, of the traffic impact, transportation impact, as well as any mitigation measures will be through the findings of that TIS once it's submitted with a future application.
Thank you. If I might, Madam Mayor, I support this development. I think it's badly needed. You talk about, you know, the gateway to the town. It's a great thing to put there for sure, but I do have those concerns about traffic. So I wonder if we might be able to get a picture or a plan of what that might look like without that building and how that extra driveway going in and out might end up. It might just be helpful for us.
Sorry, the driveway on the south or the driveway on the north?
The one that I would call on the east, closest to Carling Propane, is the one I'm thinking of. So if we could have a look at what it looks like without that building and that extra entrance, and doesn't have to be today.
But yeah, sure, we will definitely work on that. But I would like to reiterate that entrance is entrance to Carling Propane. So it's not going to be coming to our plaza. That's the main entrance to Carling Propane.
Right.
Which we are trying to keep as part of the sales agreement. But we will definitely try to do like a heat map of how the traffic is going to work around there.
Councillor Carruthers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. If you can keep that up. I have significant concerns about the traffic circulation. First of all, let me say this is much needed, and I really hope we can make it work. But when I look at this, and I'm thinking people coming from Holland Landing, how do they get in? If you're coming along Holland Landing Road and you need to make a left in there, you can't. Even if you go around the block, you're still trying to make a left. So you'd have to go down almost to Newmarket and turn around and come back. If this is to serve Holland Landing, we need a way for Holland Landing, people from Holland Landing to get in. So maybe maybe John can talk about how people coming along Holland Landing Road would access the amenities here.
The site plan that's shown on the screen right here may not be the most recent site plan that's available. Our thought process was to have the full moves access, which is adjacent to Carling Propane, to be able to have access throughout to the rest of the site as well, which would provide access for traffic volumes moving on Holland Landing Road, turning left. They can access through that full moves access rather than going a whole roundabout of ways.
Okay, so that's not what I heard when Councillor Foster asked the question, that access is supposed to be just for Carling Propane. So we've got a map in front of, or a site plan in front of us that you're saying is not the site plan. We're getting two different answers on it. This is the biggest concern for us. We love the concept. I shouldn't say we, I love the concept. Residents love the concept. Everyone is concerned about traffic, and this isn't showing me how residents are going to access it. So I have concerns about that. So I'm hoping you'll come back with the most up-to-date site plan that shows how residents from Holland Landing would access this site. I also wanted to ask about signage. When you first came to us, you had a beautiful elevation with signage right in the building, and at some point along the way, there was a picture with the sign just stuck on top of the building, which is not nearly as nice as when it was the first concept when you were first courting us. And now I don't see signage anywhere on the elevations, and I just would like us to get back to where we were to begin with, where the signage was built right into the building, and it was quite lovely.
So basically the renders that you have they were submitted for the purpose of the zoning bylaw, and because we didn't have approval for those on the building or on top, the intent is that we want to propose a billboard on top of the building, which is going to be a commercial billboard, but we are going to have the signage for the city, which is going to be on the building as shown in the original renders. So both of those need Ministry of Transportation approval and regional approval because they're regional roads. We are working on those. We are going through the required, basically, approval process to see if they're possible legally or not. So again, there will be two signs. One sign is on the building, which is going to be dedicated to the town. Another signage is on top of the building, which is basically an advertisement signage.
Okay, it was very unsightly when I saw the elevations with the
Yeah.
billboard up on top. So that's not something that I would like to see at the entrance to our community. Thank you.
No problem.
Councillor Roy DiClemente?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just further to Councillor Foster's question, and I think echoing Councillor Carruthers, it would be helpful for us to see this site plan within the context of the community. So how does the interplay of Oriole Drive coming out to Holland Landing Road, what does that look like? It sounds to me like Building A is creating a bit of a barrier for you to be able to access it. In fact, there's a green line here on the southeast corner of the site that would prevent people from even accessing your site from Building A. So I think that may be where, at least where I would like to see it, is having an understanding of it within the context of that full site circulation and how that would work. I will echo Councillor Carruthers' concerns about putting a billboard on top of the building, and I think the electronic sign may require some amendments through our sign bylaw. So that's certainly something that we can work on. I don't think that's where we need to be focusing our attention, though. I think our attention is very much on appreciating the investment that you're making here and in unlocking the potential of this site. My larger concern is not even just the traffic circulation, but it's also the servicing side of things. As I understand it, you need to pull a pipe about 1 kilometer.
1.4.
1.4 kilometers.
Even worse.
Okay. So I believe your planning consultant said it was fully serviced. I'm not sure what it's fully serviced with, but there's a pipe that's 1.4 kilometers away, and that's a challenge in and of itself, regardless of whether there's allocation available to you. And so I think that will be a challenge for you to overcome. But if you can address those two big things, I think you're going to be a welcome addition to our community, and thank you for making that investment.
Thank you. I think what Dan meant to clarify that was that it's intended per official plan that this area will be eventually serviced. That was what he intended. With regards to traffic, as we said, we are actively working to see what fits here and fine-tuning these. I can tell you from the day this was submitted till today, we've had at least 6 revisions to this site plan. Even, for example, to give you an idea, that connection between Highway 11 to Holland Landing, it's not straight. It's going at an angle right now in the new site plan. It's going at an angle to south. The drive-throughs are fine-tuned. The parkings are fine-tuned. The grading is fine-tuned because it's a very expedited project for us. Different tenants come in, they have different requirements, and we are trying to envision who can potentially occupy this building and how we can make sure we are seeing the future without knowing what the future is. So that's why there has been a lot of changes to this. We will definitely recirculate the updated site plan. I think John's team has given us some good directions per their initial findings, and it's much better essentially situated compared to Holland Landing and Highway 11. And we will do a heat map of how things are going to go around that. No problem.
I'm not seeing any other people asking to speak to you. I would like to make a couple comments myself. I think this is about the 3rd time, maybe more, that I have seen a proposal on this facility, on this land, and it's certainly welcome. It's one of those areas that is just waiting to be very profitable for someone. And it sounds like you're working on the traffic issue, because at any time of the day, particularly anywhere from 2 o'clock in the afternoon until well after the dinner hour, that area there is a challenge at the least, to say, in trying to get through there on a timely manner. So I know you know that, but certainly looking forward to seeing what you can do with this to bring it back and be able to talk with us again about the changes that have been made. I think you've heard from everyone, pretty much everyone on council, and look forward to having you come back. I'm just wondering if there's any other speakers at this time. There's the ability to have registered speakers at events such as this, and I'm wondering if there were any registered speakers, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, we do not have any registered speakers for this application. However, we did hear from 2 individuals from the audience.
Thank you. And I'm not seeing any others that are lined up, so we will move forward from here. I'm not seeing any other comments from members of council. Could I have a mover and a second, and a seconder for a resolution? Be it resolved that the Development Services Report dated March 5th, 2024, entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application, 6 Development, Inc., 19820 Holland Landing Road, be received, and that comments presented at this statutory public meeting be addressed by the Development Services Planning Branch in a comprehensive report to a future council date. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor LaHaye, Councillor Foster. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much for coming out, and your team as well. We really appreciate this. Do we have any correspondence for consideration at this time? I'm not seeing any. We will move to item K and reports. There are no reports at this time. I'll move to item L, bylaws. There are 3 bylaws on the agenda which we will deal with together. Could I have a mover and a seconder for those items? Councillor Roy DeClemente and Councillor Crone. Thank you. So, pardon me? All those in favor? That's carried. And we have no other business at this time. Confirming bylaw. I have a mover and a seconder for the resolution as presented. Councillor Crone, Councillor LaHaye, all those in favor? And that's carried. And we are at item O, which is a mover and seconder for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Crothers, Councillor Foster, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.